What is up, CSGs? In this video, I'm going to talk about the Rockets' first preseason game against the Utah Jazz. What are some takeaways that I've seen from the game, from players? How did we play? Was it good? Was it bad? You're going to get all that. And I'm also going to give you guys some things I'm going to be looking for against OKC coming up. Tap in right now. Enjoy.
Beginning takes courage.
Trying to make an impact and change the game.
I'm excited to be a part of an organization that's on the come up.
It takes fearlessness.
I think we all have our eyes set pretty high as a group.
It's one giant leap for mankind.
How high we go is up to us. We don't do these things because they're easy.
Not because they are easy.
We do them because they're hard. There's only one way forward.
This is something I know.
So the season has started, kicked off with a preseason game versus the Utah Jazz. And just wanted to give you guys some of my thoughts from the game and what I saw from the team. You know what I mean? And hopefully not overreact. I think there's a lot of overreaction to the Rockets. I'm going to preface this, this video podcast by saying that my evaluation on the team is at a different level right now, right? We are done with the curve that they get for, they're a young team, they need blah, blah, blah. Right now, my goal is for the Rockets to make it to the playoffs, and that is the lens I'm looking at this team from, a playoff team. And so that's going to kind of give me a understanding of what I'm looking at. And from what I saw yesterday, the team looked good. They look good. They look good in a sense that you can't take away nothing negative from the performance. I thought that everybody played the way that we knew they could play, right? All the players individually did what they were supposed to do. We had a strong showing from Jalen Green, strong showing from Men Thompson. Şengün did his thing. Jabari, even Reed to an extent, even though he didn't shoot the ball well, he did what he was supposed to do. You had basically all the Cam Whitmore played really, really well. All our young guys really showed up. For the vets, Fred was just out there to be out there getting his cardio in. You kind of noticed that from vets in preseason games. They're not really going as hard as they could. So it's really hard to judge a team's performance based off of one individual game, based off of playing an opponent who more than likely this year is probably going to be tanking. And then, just it's preseason, game one. They're still trying to figure out things. But there are some overall takeaways that I take from this game, and I'm going to go through those. So the first takeaway that I had, the defense from the starting five looked great. It looked great. There was something that I saw in the training camp videos that I noticed them doing. They were doing a lot of scram switching or off-ball switching and just different types of switching that weren't just at the where the action was being had. There were times where Şengün would pre-switch to the corner so that whoever is calling for the screen would get a more perimeter-oriented defender. And then that would allow him to be a help defender, which he did a pretty good job on. There were times where guys were switching out based on matchup in the middle of the action. This is important for a young team. That level of switching in the preseason is important because what that shows you is that the foundation that Ime Udoka laid last year is being built upon. Step one is just learning how to switch. That alone takes a lot of different, types of development from the players. Some of the younger guys knowing your personnel about who's the guy I'm going to switch, who am I going to go under, who do I have to go over on the screens, and if I am switching, am I going to jump out on the switch? Am I more off the ball to allow myself cushion for the players to attack? I think last season the guys were able to handle that really, really well. That's a part of kind of their learning curve that Ime was able to implement over the course of the season. This year, the next level of that is the off-ball switching. And this is, to me, this is what is going to be really, really huge if they want to play the type of defense that they want to play, to cut down on some of the mismatch hunting that teams do, to cut down on being cut on a lot, and just to cut down on some of the errors and the things that they had last season that cost them, especially late in the game. So to see them being able to execute this for the most part of the game, I think Coach Udoka alluded to it briefly. For most of the game, they did a pretty good job. They did a pretty good job with the switching. I think the defense looked pretty crisp. They held the Jazz to like 4 points in the first. It felt like they couldn't score in the first quarter of the game. And I think them being locked in like that kind of shows you that when they are out there with the screws tightened, like it's really, really hard to score. Obviously, I think Amen Thompson being in the starting lineup is huge for that for two reasons. Number one, he's playing that 4 position. You're either going to switch call screens with the 4 or the 5 man usually, right? Most teams, their 4s can set screens and their 5s can set screens. So either you're going to be trying to pick on Alpi or whoever the power forward is going to be. Now, if you put a men there who can guard it for, and I think he was on Lauri Markkanen to start off the game, that really does kind of switch up a lot of the stuff the teams try to do because he could guard those big men pretty good. And we saw him have some pretty good stops against some bigger players. So him being in the lineup is important, and I'm going to get back to that later on. But even Şengün, with the way he approached his pick and roll coverage when the screen was called to start off the game, depending on personnel, they were able to either play a very, very shallow drop, which is where he is right almost at the body level of the screener. And then towards the end of the game, when they switched up their coverage, he was pressing against the ball handler above the screen, which is something that I think that he should have done a lot more last season. I'm seeing that he is able to do it now. The Jazz aren't a great pick and roll team. They're more movement and motion. But I'm glad to see that he was able to practice some of that. And to me, it wasn't just stepping up at the level of the screen or above the screen. It's the show. That's called the show. So he would show out on the ball handler. It's when he backpedals back to his defender, which is called the retreat, the show and retreat coverage for a big man. He did that with great foot speed, which is something that if you guys have watched Şengün develop over the years, when we tried to play that defense, not as much last season, but early in his career, he would show and then he wouldn't be fast enough to get back to his assignment. And that usually featured lobs raining on our heads. So for them to be able to play a pick and roll coverage with a team that has a lob threat and multiple positions to get back to his assignment, still cut off the lob and still help on the defender, I think was impressive. I think Jalen looked locked in on defense. I love what obviously Amen, to me, one of the best perimeter defenders in the league right now. Got a poke check, was just all over the place. Fred is going to be pretty much steady in what he does. Jabari was good. He was good in most part. I think he had a couple missed assignments off ball, but on ball, showing with length, using his size, you could tell the bulk was helping him guard players that usually used to punk him. So I think overall the defense was good. One thing that I did see that they lacked in this game was something that kind of lingers on from last season, which is their offensive philosophy and identity. This game didn't give me a clear indication of what type of team we're going to be. Well, let me take that back. I think one thing that we know we want to do is get stops and run in transition. But to me, that can't be your identity, right? That can be a calling card of what you like to do. But when I'm thinking of offensive identity, once again, I'm judging this team as a playoff team. What do you do when everything else is out the window and you need to go get a bucket, right? And I still don't know with the Rockets. And to me, what we saw yesterday offensively was a bunch of individual great performances from individual players, whether it was Cam with his shooting, whether it was Jalen with his shooting, getting to the rim, Şengün with his post-ups. Shout out to him for hitting that three-pointer, look good. Just guys, men attacking the basket and trans. So everybody did what we know that they could do individually. Cohesively, I still haven't seen something develop in the team. I mean, they ran some actions, they ran some sets. There was some off-ball motion, double stagger screens off ball to get into a DHO with Şengün. All that is good, and they ran. Coach Udoka, his staff is really elite at drawing out of timeout plays. Like when they're coming out of timeouts and getting those plays where you get an open shot, great at that. But within the flow of the offense, I still think we have some gaps between the players. And I think that my personal opinion is that they want to have a free-flowing offense that's more concepts-based rather than we're going to run this set and then do this, right? So they want to run concepts. DHO into driving kicks, into kickouts that could lead into more DHOs, et cetera, and you just keep spamming that until you get a easy bucket or a mismatch, which is what we've seen the Celtics do. And you could really have an efficient offense doing that, but it heavily relies on two things. One, you have to have players that can be mismatches. I think for the most part, we have that. I would say 30 to 3 out of 5 of our players on any given play can cause mismatches for most teams in the NBA. The other part of that is having a collection of players that understand what everybody else is doing and how that relates to them. And I think that's where we need to see more maturity, because there are times where, for example, Şengün will be in the post and there'll be stuff happening and he might not see it because he's trying to score, or Jalen will be a ball handler and he's getting downhill, but he doesn't see the whole field. Honestly, the best piece out there that was running a more team-oriented style was Reed Shepherd. It was Reed Shepherd. Reed Shepherd was the player, even though he didn't shoot well. When he was running that two-man game with Şengün, he ran that two-man game, right? He was able to get the passes out to the slot in the corner. It really, to me, the equivalent of that whole your offensive play style and maximizing it is the difference of, and I said this analogy before. If you guys have played, I forgot which Madden this is, the one with the quarterback vision, right? There are some players that their quarterback vision is they can see one receiver, right? They can see one receiver and they lock into that one receiver. They can throw the ball to that receiver. So that's the limited passer, the one read player, right? In basketball. Now, there's some other players that they could see the whole field like Peyton Manning did and Tom Brady did in that version of Madden that had that quarterback vision feature. And to me, Reed is, I'm not going to say he's Peyton Manning as far as floor vision, but the dude got floor vision, which to me is one of the most important and impressive aspects that I've grown to love about his game is not his shooting, because I think the shooting is an accessory that is going to be really, really heightened by his ability to pass. When you have gravity and you could pass, then you have the buddings of a player that you want the ball in their hand all the time. So I was glad to see Reed get those on-ball reps, but still the offensive identity for the Rockets is still lacking, in my opinion. I'd love to see that developed out over, the next few months, because I think it's something that takes time and it takes a lot of sacrifice from the players. Individually, they look great. And I think off of just our talent, we're going to beat a lot of teams this year, right? We're going to be able to just out-talent, out-athletic, we're faster, stronger, just more better shooters. We're going to do that to a lot of teams on any given night. I don't care about the Jazz score, because y'all seen the CTE lineups Ime left out there in the third quarter, right? We're not going to even visit that, right? So he left those lineups out there way too long. But the scores in preseason really don't matter. You got to look at the substance. And from a substance standpoint, I just feel like offensively, they still have to define their identity. And it's not really their fault, because once things started clicking right after the All-Star break, Şengün got hurt. So they went into a different play style that they didn't play during the year. And now he's back. And now you add Reed Shepherd to the mix. Tari's going to be coming back. Obviously, Jabari's probably going to win more reps. It's a different dynamic. So now you have to reintegrate everybody back into the offense. But I think overall, my takeaway from the team play is that I think the defense hit the ground running, in my opinion. And that's huge, because we were already a top 10 defense. Now you add more continuity in that aspect of the game. It's only going to get better from there, right? We're going to be able to put the screws on a lot of teams. And I think in the NBA, if you're just competent on either side of the ball, you're going to win a lot of games. And I think on defense, I feel like we're going to have an elite defense this year, a real legit elite defense, especially with how Şengün's foot speed is, because him and Jalen are the two weakest links. And I love what I saw. Jalen was locked in, even when he was struggling to start the game. The on-ball, the off-ball switching, he seems very locked in that aspect. And Şengün, to me, he was locked in. He was really just a stout defender on the interior against players that are bigger than him. And he just did his thing, man. He looked good on the perimeter. I think a lot of the fouls they called were bogus. But he looked good. And overall, the team defense looked good. Once we got to the third unit, it was out of there. So not really harping too much on that. But yeah, I just loved what everybody did individually on offense. I just want to see a collective identity develop over time. Now, for me personally, I think, once again, a lot of this is going to be predicated on the two-man game between Jalen Green and Alperen Şengün. I didn't see them play with each other last night. I think they took turns playing good. I think you saw Jalen get to his stuff. You saw Şengün get to his stuff. I think the best synergy of the night was between Şengün and Reed Shepherd. As far as playing on the court, I want to see Jalen and Şengün really maximize each other, and it's going to take time because they haven't really had those reps throughout the last year because Fred was very, very ball dominant in that aspect. I don't want us to rely on Fred VanVleet this year. I want us to take the leap forward to really see our two of our players, because if they can get that dynamic going, it's going to really open up everything for the game. A lot of this is going to be on Jalen Green's plate to do because he's the ball handler. The ball handler decides whether the big man gets the pass, whether the pass goes to the short corner, to the far side, to the slot. Do I drive the ball? Do I shoot it? So if Jalen is going to get those on-ball reps, his overall court mapping has to be just that much better for him to be able to make the offense hum. So we'll see. I'm going to keep an eye on that as things go on. But preseason games are used to kind of tinker and kind of get your cardio, get loose, kind of show some of the stuff you did in the off season, and just kind of get a feel for the teammates. So no micro analysis on any big picture stuff. I saw a lot of nasty agendas on the timeline on Twitter. Let's stop that. Come on, guys. It's literally game 1 versus Utah. Let's just keep an eye. Once again, everybody gets a blank slate this season. Everybody gets a blank slate, but man, I'm really, really glad to see what I saw, because I feel like just from an execution standpoint, baseline of what we are, we look pretty good. We look pretty good. So some standout performances from that first preseason game. Like I said, Amen Thompson, defensively, just a juggernaut out there as a defensive player. Loved his pace. Once again, I'm going off head here. I think his pace on the team was like almost double digits higher than anybody else. And to me, he is the reason. A lot of people really don't value what he did for us when Alpi got hurt and he was inserted to the starting lineup. He changed the team's identity from a team that was decent in transition frequency to hyper transition frequency, and also just the ability to get stops and run. He pushes it. Those transition points, really, we scored more out of transition than any other set yesterday. So for him, I think he had a stellar performance. Does beg the question about him starting. I've seen a lot of people advocate for it. You guys know my view on it. I think he made a claim to be the starting small forward in place of Dylan Brooks last year. If you look at the numbers from last year, from cleaning the glass, pretty much every lineup he's in is elite. When you put him adjacent to Fred, Jalen, and him at the 3 with Şengün and literally anybody else at the 4, that the team is just crazy. The team is crazy. So I think that he should get a shot at that position, right? He should get a shot at that position. And if he keeps playing like he's playing, then I don't see the reason why he shouldn't play. But standout performance for him. He just looked good. The shot is still going to be a issue going forward. But I think all around his handles look really, really tight, and which to me is in the more immediate need than his shooting. So we'll give him time for the shooting. I think that's going to be a career-long process for him. But at baseline, he could be an all defensive player, all NBA level, just an anchor player for a team, a glue guy. To me, still one of my favorite prospects on the Rockets right now. I think Cam Whitmore had a great game. I love what I saw from him, his aggression, his ability to attack the basket, getting a nice dunk. The shooting was pure on the catch and shoot. You can see where he struggles is when he is a primary creator. When you put him with the ball in his hands, not the guy you want really doing that. I think he thrives more as a secondary scorer off of the primary creator. So I like him next to Fred and Jalen, and put him next to Amen, and put him next to Reed going forward, put him next to Şengün going forward, and just have him cut off the ball, run in transition, hit your spot up threes, and attack closeouts. I think right now that's a good way for him to keep developing his game. Like he said in the summer, he patterns his game after Jaylen Brown. Same mark for Jalen. Jalen was really a secondary kind of guy to start his career. His bag as far as creating as a primary ball handler really didn't come till later on, but love what Cam did. Let's see, I also wrote down Şengün for all the things I said earlier. The defense was legit. The offense, he is what he is on offense. He's automatic in that aspect. The mismatch for pretty much any player, big or small. I love the 3-point release, not because he made the shot, but because the lack of hesitancy. We heard Coach Udoka speak about that it's a mentality thing for him, not really a ability thing, right? So changing that mentality means stop pump faking. If you got an open shot, take it. The form looked pure. It looked good. I'd like to see him increase his frequency. If he can get to about 3 or 4 threes a game and be about a 33, 34% three-point shooter, he'd be right there with Al Horford on the Celtics teams, because that's about where Al was. He didn't take a million three. He took about 3 or 4 a game, was about 33, 34% on any given season. So I think if Şengün can get to that level, which, I mean, that's not really a big reach for him. He was low 30s last year off of like 2 attempts. So if we can get 2 more attempts a game and kind of stay maybe a percent or 2 higher, to me, that opens up the entire court for him. He just becomes impossible to guard because he can attack you off the dribble. He can post you up. He can screen you. He can roll on you. Then now he's shooting. Now he got the pick and pop. It makes everything easier for Jalen, for Fred, for any of the ball handlers. But I think overall, he just looked good. He looked crisp. His energy was good. His explosion, he looked like he had pop. I'm hoping that he can sustain this level of play for an entire season. That's why he got in shape. A lot of times, these guys, their shape isn't because they look good in one given game. It's really you build in the offseason to get to February, right? So your body doesn't collapse on you after all these games back to back and you're playing multiple nights and da. So we'll see if he's built for the long haul, because I think that getting more tone, being able to carry your body weight, I think that's going to help out. So we'll see for him. Also wrote down Jalen Green. I think Jalen, at first he started off a bit rough. Felt like he was pressing a bit more, a bit much to start the game, trying to get his offense going. I think as the game went along and he was able to kind of let the game come to him and unlocked his rhythm, and he was able to go on that burner. I think in the third quarter he had like 19 points or something crazy like that. Yeah, he just needs to just keep chopping wood, like keep doing what you're doing. I would love for him to be more consistent on a quarter-to-quarter basis. But I think for right now, what I really appreciate about his full game is that he was locked into defensively. He was rebounding really, really well throughout the game, and he was involved on and off ball, even when his shot wasn't falling. So I love the first step, getting to the basket, finishing, had the sick underhand scoop layup. The handles are really, really tight. That's an underrated part of his game that has developed over the past few years. I still think the sky's the limit for him and the Rockets, because he's the one that's really going to push us over the top when he is on. And I don't need him to be scoring 30 points and a half. Like, just being a consistently positive player the entirety of the game. And I think that's something I expect from him. I liked what I saw from him because the engagement was there the whole time. This is shades of what he looked like in March. I think a lot of his struggles come down to this, right? When he is the primary scorer, he thrives. When he is on the court with other players that are other scorers, Şengün, with Fred, with to a lesser extent with Amen, and when guys are hunting their shots with him, he kind of falls off rhythm. In order for him to be successful as a star player in this league, he's going to need to learn how to play with other good players, right? You're going to need to learn, because the ceiling for the Rockets is that much higher when he's on around other good players. If he's on when he's the lone like ball getter, the guy that's going to go put the ball in the hoop, when he's that guy on the court by himself, the ceiling for the Rockets is real low. I want to see him thrive with the full starting five. And I think that's something that is going to come with what I said earlier, understanding the philosophy of the team. This is going to take time for them to define that out, but I think over time it'll smooth itself out. Offense and the chemistry that comes with that takes a little bit longer. They're going to be ahead of where they were last season on every aspect of the game. I'd like to see that offense really hit its stride instead of post All-Star break for the team. Let's get into our groove in November, mid-November, after a couple games under our belt. A player that I did like to touch on, Steven Adams, came in, gave some good minutes. Great screening. You can see the level of his screens are so impactful, creates a lot of space. I mean, he puts guys in prison. Defensively, he looked a little sluggish. The lateral movement wasn't there. I'm going to assume this is due to coming off an injury, and it's going to take time for him. I don't think Steve is going to be able to just come out there and be what he was before he got injured. So this is probably going to take a couple months for him to get back to his form. And I think whenever you're dealing with injured players, one of the things that you want to see as a training staff, the medical staff, they're going to be looking at not only how he plays when he's playing, but how does his body react to the stress of playing? Because a lot of times with players that are injured, it's not the game itself or the 2-3 games. It's the lactic acid buildup and all the stuff that happens afterwards. How does their body react to it? How does their body react to having to compensate for tired muscles and tired joints? So that's where you have to be careful with these guys. I'd be surprised if this dude actually played. I'd be surprised if he played in this coming game against OKC, because I just know the nature of these things. He's likely not going to play. I don't know what's wrong with Jock Landale. I didn't see a report. If you guys know, let me know in the comments. But if Jock is healthy, he probably should play in that game. If Steven does suit up, he might be very, very limited. I don't think it'd be wise for the Rockets to put him out for multiple like 15, 20-minute games on like 2 nights and 3 days. We already know how that goes. Dealing with Eric Gordon here for half a decade, we know the continuous knee plan, or the continuous foot injury plan that these type of guys are always on for the rest of their career. So I expect Steven Adams to be on the same thing. So previewing the OKC game, I think this is going to be a great barometer for the Rockets to really see where we are. You see OKC added Isaiah Hartenstein, they added Alex Caruso. Those guys play really good against the Spurs, right? They look good. They're a team that has more depth. I think the Hartenstein addition is monumental for that team. One of the weaknesses that they had was the 5 position. As good as Chet is, he is so slight in frame that any team that had a dominant offensive big man was going to feast on them, as we've seen Şengün do over the past few years against them. Some of his better games have come against the Oklahoma City Thunder and Chet himself personally. So now you add Hardenstein. When you have a Şengün and you have to guard him, you can throw Hardy on Şengün. Not saying he's going to stop him, but he does make it that much more difficult for a team that already has a lot of talent, right? So having that body there to be in, I'm curious to see like how are they going to play it. I imagine that Chet probably still starts at the 5. Watching the game, Chet was very, very aggressive on offense. Could be a product of a lot of their starters not playing, but seems like in this season, in his year 2, he's more focused on being more aggressive and being more assertive, which is to me is a plus for him. Honestly, I think he has the talent to really add a lot to his game. He still has a lot of development to go as far as knowing how to use his strength, his size, all that stuff. But he was very aggressive. So I'm looking at that to see, are they going to be aggressive trying to attack Şengün with the way they did in the game that Chet actually played well. I know that we dominated them in Houston. I think there was a game, I don't know if it was in OKC or Houston, before the one where we beat them in overtime, where they were abusing Şengün in the pick and pop, and it really kind of caused a lot of issues. So I'm willing to see, because you're going to see a matchup of 2 players that went into the offseason to address different things that are kind of complementary of each other. Chet going into the offseason, his thing was to get stronger and add weight. Even though he still looks very skinny, he did look like he got stronger, and the added weight should help him get to spots better, be more aggressive on offense. So he can theoretically attack Şengün more on the defensive end. And then Şengün, a guy went into summer to get more in shape, leaner, quicker, faster, against a Chet who wants to attack his slowness. So that matchup is going to be really interesting to see. I feel like they're both going to play significant minutes in that game. So that's going to be a really good matchup. Also, seeing that OKC likes to play 5 out, how we space the floor, and how we try to shrink the floor for them to be able to play. Because if Dort isn't out there and Dort was shooting the ball, I mean, they got shooters everywhere. So I'm curious to see what Udoka has for them, and what type of package and what type of defense we're going to run. Are we going to switch everything? Are we going to leave Şengün on an island? Are they going to play more Jabari at the 5 in this game? Is Uncle Jeff going to play in place of Steven Adams per se? This is not a Steven Adams game. I'm just going to throw that out right now. This is not a Steven Adams game. He will get cooked if he plays the Thunder. This is a much more better test for the Rockets than the Jazz were, because I feel like this Thunder team poses a lot of the threats that our team really has to face to get to that level. With the added fact that they've added one of the best perimeter defenders in Caruso, and then a true big man now that you really can't exploit. So they can play in different ways. They can play the typical drop coverage that we see that protects the rim, or they could play perimeter 1 through 5, and you just got to break guys down. I think we should be able to look good versus them. I'm not going to say win or lose, because these preseason lineups, you may beat a team once you're starting 5, and then the second and third string come in and crash out. So I don't consider wins or losses. I think, can we win the minutes we're supposed to win? I think so, but I am just fascinated at this game And I'm curious to see how many minutes guys are going to play. I noticed Udoka really pushed the team to play a lot of minutes in this past game into the third quarter, late in the third quarter, before he took the leash off and kind of let the other guys come in. But in this game, I'm feeling like they're gonna play a lot and then chill on because we get like a week break in between the preseason games, and I think they're gonna chill on the front end of those 2 games before we start the season. I'm not sure. Or is he like Mike D'Antoni, who just plays all his players all the time? I'm really curious to see his philosophy on that. But this would be a great game. This would be a game where you want to do it. If you want to do a dress rehearsal, if you're the Rockets, this is it, right? Because the Thunder only have one speed, which is they play hard. And they have the type of players that you really want to get some good film on. So I'll be watching the Chet Şengün matchup for that. I want to see if Jalen can replicate some of the success he had in that game that we played them where he just went off and went crazy. Can we replicate that intensity against that team? I'm not sure if SGA is going to play. I'm not sure. They might have a totally different lineup than they did against the Spurs, but that's going to be a fascinating lineup. I feel like we still have, to me, in my opinion, we just match up well against them. And I think the X factor is always going to be LP for them and Jalen's ability to break down the defense. I want to see Reed get some more minutes with the starters. I feel like, as I said earlier, he brings a certain level to the offense that Fred don't even got some of that stuff in his bag. Being able to come off a screen and whip the pass across the court. He's probably the only guy on the team that could do that, right? That could see the full tree, that gets those kickouts to everywhere on the court. I want to see him get some synergy with the starters and get into his bag a little bit more. One thing I noticed about Reed, and I forgot to touch on this earlier, he is incredibly passive right now, but that's okay because he's a rookie, right? That's normal. He's being respectful. He's trying to find his footing, learning how to play in the NBA. Things are probably moving a bit faster for him than he's used to. There were a lot of opportunities for him to let it fly. He has to get over that whole shy thing. Like, you got to let it fly, bro. Like, if he is not being aggressive with his shot, it throws off the offense when he's on the court. So I know coach is going to tell him that he has to shoot. He has to shoot because that's one of the things that he's going to bring to the team early on in his career, because that's what we need him for. We don't have a player with that ability as he has it right now on the roster, the passing and the shooting. So I'd like to see him be way more aggressive. But this game is going to be great. I'm looking forward to it. You guys let me know in the comments, what key matchups do you think is going to happen that's going to determine the win for the Rockets versus the Thunder? And also, what was your favorite part of the preseason game against the Jazz? Was it a certain play? Was it a player that you like? Let me know in the comments or in the chat. With that said, that is going to be it for today. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button. If you like this video, hit the like button. Keep rocking with the Chop Shop, and we're going to keep dropping that fire.
DJ Candlestick. It's the Chop Not Slap Show.